Hello everyone. Today we discuss about consumer attitudes and behavior. Consumer attitudes and behavior. Consumer are a ordinary human being who happen to be engaged in activities related to the purchase of products or services. It should come as no surprise, therefore, that the psychology or physiology of the consumer deals with the same kinds of issues as psychology in general. Memory and cognitions, affect and emotion, judgment and decision making, group dynamics, and the myriads of other topics covered in the psychological literature. As is evident in this volume, consumer psychologists employ the concepts, theories, and finding of psychology also. Consumer behavior, there is general agreement that consumer behavior refers first and foremost to the act of buying a certain product or service. This, however, is by no means the only behavior of interest to consumer psychologists. At issue as well are search of information relevant to a purchase decision, selection of retail outlet or service provider, and other actions performed prior to and in the service of a purchase. Consider, for example, the act of buying a washing machine. Prior to the purchase, consumer may search for relevant information on the web, consult friends and co-workers, read consumer magazines, and discuss the options with a spouse or partner. The information obtained may narrow the decisions to a small number of manufacturers and brands. At this point, this consumer may well visit one or more local showrooms to view the stuff or different brands and consult sales representatives about the price, warranty, installation, delivery time, removal of the existing washing machine, and so forth. Finally, the consumer decides on a particular brand and place an order. Consumer psychology is concerned with all aspects of consumer purchase decision, but in any given investigation, we must, for practical reasons, limit our focus. We will usually select a behavior of particular interest and examine the determinants of the behavior in question. Although not always clearly recognized, every behavior involves a choice, even if the alternative is taking no action and thus maintain the status quo. So, it is useful to distinguish between behaviors that focus on a single option and behaviors that involving a choice among two or more distinct alternatives. As the washing machine example illustrate, most purchase decisions involve both types of behaviors. The decision to buy or not to buy a new washing machine focuses on a single option, whereas the decision to buy one brand of washing machine rather than another is a choice among multiple alternatives. However, in the final analysis, behaviors involving multiple alternatives are unlimitedly or ultimately reduced to a single option decisions. After going through the preliminary stages, the consumer either buys or does not buy a particular brand of washing machine or another stuff. My discussion will therefore first focus on the single option behavior, the basic unit of analysis, and then consider additional issues related to the prediction and understanding of purchase decisions that involve multiple options. Now, single option behaviors, any single instance of behavior is an observable event that takes place in a certain context and at a given point in time. In additional purchase behaviors are also directed at some target, usually a product or brand. It is therefore useful to think of purchase behavior as comprised of four elements: the action performed, that is buying, searching for information; the target at which the action is directed, the product category or brand; the context in which it is performed, that is sales online retailers; at the time at which it is performed. Each of a purchase behavior's four elements can be defined at varying levels of generally or specificity. If we decided to collect data about the extent to which people search for information, that is action about a particular model, it may be TV, on a particular weekend time, all elements would be defined at a very high level or specificity. In this case, the behavior is no narrowly defined as to be of little practical or theoretical significance. A more meaningful criterion might focus on, say, searching online for information about any kind of product in the next 2 weeks. Here, the action element, searching for information, and the context element, online, remain quite specific. The time element has been expanded to a 2 week period, and the target elements have been greatly generalized to include all product category. Alternatively, we might be interested in searching for information about automobiles in the next 6 months. So now action, information, search, but now the target is more narrowly defined as automobiles. The context is not limited to online search. So the important point to make that observed behavior may differ depending on the particular definition we adopt. Thus, consumers may act differently when they search for automobiles as opposed to life insurance policies, and different patterns of information search may occur 6 months compared to 1 week prior to a purchase decisions. Moreover, to study a broad category of behavior such as information search in general, we have to obtain data that generalize the target, context, and time element. This requires that we observe or obtain self-reports of information search with respect of to different kinds of products using different media over an extended period of time. For discussions, so choose behavior, we have seen that single option behavior can be studied at a high level of generality. In fact, questions of theoretical significance are usually formulated at a fairly general level, whether they have to do with the decisions to buy or not to buy a product such as new automobiles, or with the determinants of such consumer behaviors as buying life insurance, putting money in a pensions plan, using credit cards, and so forth. By comparison, questions about behaviors that involves a choice among two or more options are usually studied at a lower level of generality. Thus, we may be interested to know why people buy one brand of automobile rather than another, why they choose one type of medical treatment over another, or why they fly one airlines rather than another. Here too, however, we must clearly define the action, target, context, and time elements of the behavioral consumer attitude and behavior. Alternatives. The decisions to buy tickets on one airline rather than another can be affected by the destination target elements. A person may prefer one airline for overseas flights but another for domestic flights. So similarly, choice of insurance company may vary depending on whether we buy life insurance, automobile insurance, or uh, property insurance. So determinants of consumer behavior, a purchase decisions confronts the consumer with a host of potential challenges. Most important perhaps is the problem structuring that occur prior to making decisions, becoming aware of the need for or availability of a new product or service, collecting information about the alternatives, defining likely future events and other circumstances relevant to the purchase decisions, and considering possible outcomes contingent on the decisions. Now, after structuring the problem, the consumer needs to process the obtained information, choose a preferred course of action, and implement the decisions at an appropriate opportunity. Finally, consumer can use feedback resulting from a purchase to re-evaluate their decisions, perhaps reversing it by returning a purchased product to the store. This information can also prove valuable for future purchase decisions. And multi-tribute decisions models. One approach to consumer behavior is grounded in behavioral decisions theory. Now, with its roots in economics and statistics, the starting point of this approach is a rational model of choice behavior. The decision maker is linked to an institute or intuitive uh, statisticians who carefully considers the alternatives and makes full use of all available informations in accordance with normative principles of probability and logic when forced with a choice among competing brands or products. Consumers are assumed to fly first identify the attribute dimensions relevant to the decisions. Each option is then evaluate on these attributes to reach a decisions. Consider, for example, consumer trying to decide whether to buy a picture tube, that is CRT, or a flat panel, that is LCD television set. Certain attributes such as the dimensions of the display, warranty period, and locations of dealer may be irrelevant as they are the same for the two products. The comparison may therefore rest primarily on such attributes as picture quality, price, reliability, and visual appeal. Image that in a particular consumer eyes CRT sets are relatively inexpensive with proven reliability, moderate picture quality, and low visual appeal, whereas LED sets are expensive and without proven reliability but have high picture quality and high visual appeal. To make a decision, the consumer must derive and all over evaluations of each product category in terms of the combination of attributes that characterized it. In the basic multi-attribute model, this overall evaluation is assumed to be a weighted average of the subjective values or utilities associated with the individual attributes. That is, each attribute dimensions is given a weight representing its subjective importance to the decision, with the restrictions that weights added to one. And the product is given a value for each attribute. The subjective utility of each product is obtained by summing the weighted attribute value for the product, and the product with the highest subjective utility is chosen. So decision under uncertainty. In the above example, the attributes of each product were assumed to be known with certainty. Thus, the consumer knew the price, picture quality, reliability, and visual appeal each product. All they needed to do was to assign importance, weights, and subjective values to these attributes and then derive a weighted average. In many situations, however, the attributes or outcomes of choice alternatives are not known with certainty ahead of time. Often, the outcomes produced by a decision depend on the state of the world at the time of the decision is made. Now, transmit high definitions programs to take this uncertainty into account. The consumer has to judge not only the value of the high definition display but also the likelihood that his attribute will be available. Perhaps more readily recognized are the risk and the uncertainties inherent in investment decisions. The outcomes of decisions to invest in a fixed interest certificate or deposit on a stock market mutual fund depends on future market conditions, whereas the CD produces a known payoff over a given time period. The amount of probability of possible gains or losses to be expected to the mutual fund can only be estimated. Perhaps the most popular approach to the analysis of decisions under conditions of certainty is the subjective expected model. Now, multi-attribute models that I mentioned earlier, every time they make a decisions, these models are taken not a accurate descriptions of the way in which decisions are made, but rather as ideal or normative models against which actual judgments or decisions can be compared. It is assumed that consumer decisions, like decisions in any domain, can be modeled as if the consumer were performing the stipulated calculations. Consistent with economics and mistrust of self-reports and reliance on relevant preference, much work on behavioral decision theory involves attempts to infer the decisions process from choice among the specified alternatives. Indeed, importance, weights, subjective probabilities, and utilities are rarely, if ever, assessed in research with these models. Now, multi-attribute decisions models typically confront participants with a choice of involving certain options and their possible outcomes. The decisions made are even evaluated as to where they conform to the model's implications. For example, in their well-known work on odd framing and risk aversion. Now, that's the end of the video, my friends. If you like my videos, please subscribe my channel. Thanks a lot for watching my videos.